Castillón Confidencial by Albert Castillón.
Welcome, insiders. This is breaking news because things are happening, yes. And when the mafia gets moving, they make things happen on weekends, at Christmas, at New Year's, at times when we let our guard down. Here we try not to do that because we already know them. Look, Venezuela has just appointed a new Venezuelan ambassador to Spain. Delcy Rodriguez is very happy because he is one of hers, even though he is disguised as part of the fake Venezuelan opposition. And do you know what's worse? This new Venezuelan ambassador to Spain turns out to be the best friend of the accused. Rodriguez Zapatero, the man behind the business dealings with whom he has been sharing secrets of the Venezuelan regime for more than 10 years. How is it possible that amid the charges, while Zapatero is being investigated, and I hope he ends up in prison for alleged crimes, they appoint his right-hand man in Venezuela, sent to Spain as ambassador? Very simple. To cover everything up, to help him with his defense, to get him, if necessary, diplomatic immunity, even to shelter him in the Venezuelan embassy in Madrid. If things get worse, we have a lot to tell you in a minute. Friends, this man you're about to see is the new ambassador of Venezuela to Spain, appointed by Delcy Rodriguez. His name is Timoteo Zambrano. He's an ambassador, and not only that, a representative of the World Tourism Organization. I'll talk to you about that later because the headquarters is in Madrid, of course. Sanchez gave it to the UNWTO. Look, there are a lot of hidden Chavistas in the fake opposition. This is the main one of all of them. He has changed parties a dozen times because what he wants is to keep living in Venezuela and keep making money hand over fist. He is the oldest ally of Delcy Rodriguez, Jorge Rodriguez, and Maduro, but also of Rodriguez Zapatero, at least since 2014, and now he will help Zapatero not to reveal everything or to be cautious in what he does in exchange for favors, money, or maybe even another gold mine. Look, Timoteo Zambrano claims to be from the opposition, but you only need to see some of his latest public appearances to understand who he is.
We are witnessing the model political and economic model. Delcy Rodriguez's. That's very important. There are other models that are already broken. From there, then, we have the parliament. Stability is not possible if it isn't also on its side. The National Assembly, which today has joined forces with the presidency of Delcy Rodriguez to give it strength to make it successful.
In 2014, this lackey of Delcy Rodriguez and the Chavista regime came to Spain and came to convince Rodriguez Zapatero, who had already been out of Moncloa for 3 years. He was no longer the prime minister, to convince him to act as a mediator. And what started as a mediator's task to bring Maduro and the opposition closer together, always docile in that country unless they're in prison. What started as mediation ended up becoming a big business. Since then, Zambrano and Zapatero have been inseparable. The current ambassador says he does it because he opposes Maduro and wants to improve the country. And Zapatero, who claims to be a mediator to achieve peace. That's false. Both of them are lying. They're only after power and money. And they've proven it over the past 12 years. In 2019, at the beginning of that year, Juan Guaidó, President of the National Assembly, emerges on the scene and declares himself president of the country. There are several places in the world, including Spain, that recognize him as the elected president. February 4th, 2019. Pedro Sanchez does it with these words.
Now that this day has come and no steps have been taken in this direction by the Maduro regime, the government of Spain announces that it officially recognizes Juan Guaidó, President of the Venezuelan Assembly, Mr. Guaidó Marquez, as the interim president of Venezuela.
It was Pedro Sanchez who had just come to power. He had only been prime minister for a few months. Maduro and Delcy Rodriguez want to get rid of Juan Guaidó, to put an end to that madness of being a president in exile and being recognized by some countries. And a few months later, in November 2019, they launch Operation Scorpion. What is it? Buy off everyone they need to with millions and millions of dollars so they don't recognize Juan Guaidó. And who is the person in charge, appointed by the regime to distribute the millions, to decide who gets them and who doesn't? Yes, gentlemen, Zambrano, the one who is now Venezuela's ambassador to Spain. He was the key congressman in Operation Alacran. He was the one who allegedly let himself be bought by Maduro for the largest amount and distributed it to whoever he wanted, in exchange for achieving the dictator's goals and keeping his mouth shut. When we talk about a fake opposition in Venezuela, it was mainly created by Zambrano, that docile, soft opposition that pretends to play along with the elections, that never denounces electoral fraud and whitewashes the regime. That's Zambrano. Since then, they've called him the Scorpion. You'll understand why. That happened in November of 2019. And gentlemen, among others, Zambrano allegedly bought Rodriguez Zapatero. With the money that Maduro gave him, he began to establish connections with his close friend so that he would convince Sanchez not to recognize Guaidó. He had to take back his words, or at least forget about Guaidó and return to the side of evil, to Maduro's side. And that's how it is. After the maneuvers of Zambrano and Rodriguez Zapatero, Pedro Sanchez doesn't even meet with Juan Guaidó when he comes on an official visit to Spain on January 25, 2020. That's what every newspaper put on its front page. It's true that he called him on the phone. He spoke to him by phone and fed him one of Sanchez's usual lies. But he never met with him after recognizing him as president a few months earlier. And what happened between 2019 when he recognized him and 2020 when he didn't even meet with him? The Delcy Gate incident. 40 suitcases. That's what happened in between. On January 20th, 2020, Delcy Rodriguez came to pay what was agreed. And she comes with 40 suitcases with money and with gold. To pay what was agreed, for example, to Air Europa, to whom they owed $176 million. That's why Aldama was there, hired by Air Europa to handle the exchange. To pay what was agreed to the Sanchez government in exchange for the change of position on Guaidó. That's why Ábalos was there as Sanchez's envoy to oversee the changes. And then I'm told that there was a batch of gold bars in one of those suitcases that had another destination, allegedly ZP. None of those 40 packages went through any checks. Everything was considered diplomatic baggage. No civil guard inspected them. There was on the runway a large vehicle with diplomatic plates. It belongs to the Venezuelan embassy in Madrid, and everything was loaded there and left directly. What we do know is that that shipment did not fly to Dubai, which was the next trip that Delcy Rodriguez took. Absolutely not. That shipment stayed in Spain and was distributed in Spain. Some sources claim that part of that shipment ended up in a hangar or in a safe house that was reportedly in the name of the Venezuelan embassy in Spain. Therefore, it's territory where the police and civil guard can't enter or investigate. I'm sure that shortly after, everyone involved in the scheme met up to divide the loot. And that wasn't the last chapter. Just a few months later, in March 2021, the bailout of Plus Ultra was part of the agreement to have a fast communication route between Caracas, Madrid, and Equatorial Guinea. They were stealing in Caracas. In Madrid, they divided it up. In Guinea, they hid the loot. But I was telling you at the beginning that Timoteo Zambrano, the new ambassador, you know what kind of guy he is coming to Spain. As Delcy Rodriguez's ambassador, he has also been appointed as the representative to the World Tourism Organization. Look, the UNWTO it's a den of criminal activity, with countless more than suspicious cases that have been and are being investigated in Spain. Sanchez gave an entire building in Madrid to the World Tourism Organization. In exchange for what? So that they would do business with his wife. There you can see Secretary General Zurab Polikashvili with Begoña Gomez. We reported it more than 2 years ago, and we went to the building so you could see it. You are looking at the building of the World Tourism Organization in Madrid, in the center of Madrid, very close to Paseo de la Castellana. It's a gift from Pedro Sanchez to the UNWTO from the moment Begoña Gomez became director of Africa Center. A gift. 75 years, a free building, and 25 million in public funds that was given to the organization for furniture and computers. From then on, everything Begoña Gomez did was being promoted by the World Tourism Organization. And you paid for it. It's no coincidence that now this man, Zapatero's best friend in business, comes to Spain with diplomatic immunity. He can, for example, offer diplomatic asylum to Rodriguez Zapatero if things go wrong. He can manipulate data, falsify information. He can even hide documents from Rodriguez Zapatero's circle that haven't yet reached the judge, the UCO, or the UDEF. Whatever happens will be more complicated with Zambrano as Venezuela's legal representative than without Zambrano, make no mistake. Delcy Rodriguez has not appointed an ambassador to Spain. She has sent a lifeline to Zapatero so he can grab it and try to survive. Because this is a chain of favors. If Maduro fell, Zapatero would fall, and if Zapatero falls, Delcy will fall. All of them in the same criminal organization with the same goal. To steal what isn't theirs, what belongs to the Venezuelan people. In Spain, unfortunately, we already have a legion, an army of thieves, some with Spanish passports, others with Venezuelan ones, but they all have the same goal. Our duty is to uncover them so there is no impunity. Friends, there will be more. Welcome. We investigate.
Castillon Confidential by Albert Castillon.